Welcome, everyone. So excited to have folks here. I'm really happy to be here. Please type yes in the chat if you've seen me before, or new if you are new while we get set up here. It's going to take a second. Things are running a little over. Time out. Oh, lots of new. All right. Thank you for your patience. And I can see the chat now. So it looks like, a lot of new folks. Wow, excellent. Okay. Well, for all those folks who are new, thank you, first of all, Harvard Pilgrim and Tufts Health Plan, for inviting me to talk about positive psychology, the science of happiness, or how to be happier. Just type yes in the chat if you'd like to learn how to be a tiny bit happier for 2022. See if you're in the right place at the right time. All right, awesome. Okay, I love that enthusiasm, lots of exclamation points. So if you haven't seen me before, my name is Pam Garamone. I'm a positive psychology speaker and life coach. And I had the good fortune to study with Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar, the professor at Harvard, who became famous because he taught the most popular class at Harvard, How to Be Happier. And I got to study with him for almost a year and get myself happier by doing happiness habits. There are actually things you can do every day to increase your happiness. So if you're new, you're actually starting, this isn't happiness 101. This is kind of like happiness 202, but you can jump in really at any time. And I'm very happy that you chose to be here today to talk about character strengths. But before we get started, that's me, happy to be here. This is the quokka. It's actually known to be the happiest animal on earth. It lives in Rottnest Island off the coast of Australia. And when we could travel a little more freely, people would fly from all over the world to take selfies with the quokka. And I like to start with this adorable animal because it just makes me smile. So maybe put a happy face in the chat if you're smiling, or maybe you need a hug from this adorable animal. Let's start with the happiness ladder. Where are you on the happiness ladder? If 1 is living your worst possible life and 10 is living your best possible life, what number would you give yourself right here, right now, the beginning of a brand new year, middle of the week? 1 is your worst possible life, 10 is your best possible life. You could put it in the chat, you could just think about it, or you could write it in your notes. Whatever works. And now, folks, if you say, for example, you're a 4 or 5, then you want to be listening for things you can do personally to make yourself happier. If you're already a 7 or 8, then think of things that might resonate that you could make other people around you, either at work or at home, a little bit happier. So type yes in the chat if in the last, I don't know, let's say week, you have felt any of these emotions. Exhausted, stressed, fear, anxiety, anxious, maybe overwhelmed. Anybody feel, and it could even be depressed, miserable, gloomy? To be honest, yesterday I felt a little gloomy. I don't really even know why, which reminds me that, going back to the happiness ladder, the goal of positive psychology is not to be a 10 all the time. If you were happy all the time, no one would like you. That's weird, right? It's not real. It's not authentic. The goal is to feel all of our feelings. It's called permission to be human, that we actually get to feel whatever we're feeling. So yes, if you felt gloomy, then kind of just being with that emotion and let it run through you instead of pretending we're happy. So it's express all of our emotions instead of repressing them. We find that if we repress things like, I'm not angry, and then we blow up. So it's better to just say, yeah, today I'm feeling a little bit gloomy. Now let's look at these emotions. Type yes in the chat if you felt any of these. And let's say even in just the last week, joy, friendship, gratitude, love, confidence, optimistic. And it just goes to show that we can hold tough emotions and happier emotions. It's not one or the other, that it's really all of them, relaxed, happy. So yeah, we have some positive emotions as well. The secret to being human, again, it's not feeling happy all the time. It's about feeling everything, to feel it all and tell the truth about it, to express it rather than repress it. Life is easier when we share our hard things with other people, or it could be just journaling the stresses or traumas and anxiety, could be just crying. Sometimes having a good cry, letting it out that way can be helpful. Talking to a therapist, talking to a friend or family member, getting it out, sharing our hard things and sharing our good things. So let's share some of our good things right now. Write in the chat just one good thing that's happened to you in the last 24 hours. Let's see, it's Wednesday. So if you have to go back to the weekend for some good things, you can do that too. One good thing. It could be that you're working from home today. It could be you're listening to Happiness Talk. It could be the Bruins won last night. Hello. What are some good things that have happened in your world in the last 24 hours? No one is sick. I mean, hello, that's more than good. That's amazing. What else? One good thing. It could be somebody made coffee for you this morning. Maybe your dog licked you awake this morning. What are some good things out in the world today? I babysat for a 20-month-old, 24, texting with a friend. Those are social connections. The number one happiness booster. People. We need people to share our hard things and share our good things. One more. Who else has something good out there? Had a good night's sleep. Excellent. Sleep is a happiness booster. And here's something to think about going into 2022. If you need help, if you're struggling, if you are anxious or stressed, it can be helpful to ask for help, to be willing to ask for help. And this is actually a skill and a practice. It doesn't come easy for a lot of people because, well, let me ask you, would you rather give help or ask for help? So type in the chat, give or ask, which would you rather do? Give help or ask? And usually if I'm talking to 100 people, it's give, right? So it's hard because we think, oh, I don't want to bother people. They're too busy. Then they'll know I don't know, and you might feel not as good. So it's a challenge, but it's a practice. And if you have the courage to ask for help, you could relieve so much stress in like 2 minutes. Quick example, my printer here in my home office wasn't working and I tried everything. I Googled it, I called, brother was on hold, finally got someone, do this, and this, nothing worked. Honestly, there were a lot of curse words shared out loud. And I was just so frustrated. I could not get this printer to work for days. And then I just didn't print anything. Then finally I was like, my friend Jenny is brilliant at tech. Why don't I just ask her? Do you know, folks, she had fixed that in less than 5 minutes. And not only that, she made it even better. I had to plug stuff in to print it, to the laptop, to the printer. Now it's wired so I can print from anywhere in the house. So she made it even better. And all that anxiety and stress and frustration was gone just because I had the courage to ask for help. So maybe this week, whatever it is, see if you can practice this happiness booster. Ask for help. All right. So now the next thing I want to share with you is, we're in the midst of a happiness movement, if you're not familiar with it, all over the world, ever since the Harvard happiness course. Sean Achor was Tall's teaching assistant at Harvard, and he wrote many good books about happiness. And one of the things he says is, why does happiness matter? Because our brain on positive performs better than on negative, neutral, or stress. Just type yes in the chat. Would you agree? When we feel good, we do good. When we're feeling better, we do better. So happiness matters. And there are so many different things we can do to increase our happiness. But today, our focus is going to be on character strengths. But before we get to character strengths, there's one challenge that will always come up whenever we're trying to change our thoughts. It's this negativity bias. every single human being is hardwired to go negative. It's been said we have 70,000 thoughts a day and 85% of them are negative. Maybe some of you woke up and said, oh, it's going to rain today, again today. It's another dull day. There's this voice in our head that's almost always negative, and it takes practice. It's an intentional effort to override these negative voices. And that's really what positive psychology is it's a shift in perception, a shift. See if you can see two different images in this illusion. Positive psychology is a shift in perception. It's the idea we can make ourselves think and act in ways that help, but it's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. It takes practice and it takes an effort, and it takes a lot of positive thoughts to override the inherent negativity. I see some folks agree there. So again, what we're going to focus on today is character strengths. And maybe some of you have done character tests before. If you have, maybe just type in the chat which ones you may have done before. I think there's like Strength Finder. There are some other ones, but the one that I'm going to be talking about is found on the viacharacter.org website. Might want to write that down and take a note. Marty Seligman is the founder of positive psychology out of the University of Pennsylvania. And the idea here is that we all have 24 character strengths, and these are the character strengths. And if we can cultivate these strengths, we can help shift the negativity bias and pursue positivity. And again, when we feel good, we do good. When we feel better and more positive and hopeful and optimistic, we do better. So again, these are the 24 character strengths from the VIA Character Strength Survey. If you go to that website, viacharacter.org, you can take a free survey there, and it takes about just under 15 minutes. You answer all these questions, and then they will email you a list of your 24 character strengths, all of these in your order. I find this incredibly amazing. No, millions of people have taken this test, and no two are the exact same order. Isn't that interesting? 24 character strengths, they're all the same for everyone, but they're never in the same order. So you look at your list when you get it in your email, and your top 5 on the list are known to be your signature strengths. The signature strengths are the top 5 that are just part of who you are. You don't even maybe notice that you have them because they're just so connected to you and just what you do. They're part of your identity that you don't even realize you have it. So for example, and they change too. If you take it, you can help move ones that are near the bottom up. So if you take it again in 6 months and you focused on a different strength, they will change. But your top 5, again, like my top 5 are bravery, honesty is always in my top 5, leadership, and I forget what the other 2 are off the top of my head. Creativity is always number 24 or 23, and self-regulation for me and most people is always 23 or 24. Now, another thing to notice about character strengths and this list of 24, there are no weaknesses. So number 24 for me, creativity or self-regulation, they're not weaknesses, they're just lesser strengths. They're all strengths. Some come easier to us than others. So what I want to share with you, it's a little challenging. This is typically a 2-hour training, and people will come with their lists, and we do all kinds of activities. But I want to share with you 3 things that you can do even not knowing your list in the order of your strengths. So a couple of things, maybe 3 that you can start to practice right away. Now, when using your strengths, you can, let me just check something here. Oh yeah, right here. Yeah. So strengths have been found to predict well-being. So again, just using these strengths and focusing on using them, you can expect to be happier. have better increased well-being, more work satisfaction, more, and just type yes if you would like any of these, more work engagement, more meaning in your life, more self-efficacy, higher self-esteem, able to achieve goals easier, feeling more positive, more vitality, and less stress. So if any of these things are things that, yeah, going into 2022, I'd love at least one of these, that just put yes in the chat. And again, the things I share with you, the strengths and how to work with them will help you along this journey of any one of these. When using our strengths, again, you can expect to be happier at work and at home, have more of a sense of ownership and authenticity. And when we're using those top 5 signature strengths, you will feel more energized and more satisfied. So let's think a little bit more about these strengths. There are 7 strengths, again, out of the 24 that are game changers. And what I mean by this is they found that the most successful people have these in their top 5 or 7 strengths. So when you do take the survey, just notice, where are these in your list of 24? I already said self-control, number 24, typically, but here they are, the 7 strengths: optimism, gratitude, social intelligence, perseverance or grit, curiosity, self-control, and enthusiasm. So here's the thing. Again, none of these, if these are lower on your list, doesn't mean they're a weakness. It just means it's a lesser strength. So I'm going to show you how you can move up. Say self-control is number 24 for you. How can you move it up? What if optimism is 16 and you want it to be more in the top 7? How do you move up strengths? That's one thing I'm going to share with you shortly. The next thing is, if you have kids at home or anywhere around you, they found there are 3 strengths that are predictive of school success, and they are self-regulation, perseverance, and grit, and love of learning. So I'm going to share with you how you can encourage the young people in your life to practice these character strengths. And lastly, the happiness strengths. They are gratitude, hope, zest, love, and curiosity. So again, when you take your survey, you want to see where the happiness strengths are. And if you want to be happier in 2024, then these are some of the strengths you're going to want to focus on. So again, feel free to take any pictures of these slides or notes so that you can remember. And we'll have time at the end if any questions come up for you. All right, so here's how you move up strengths. So probably about a few years ago, I wanted to move up bravery. It was number 18 on my list, and I really wanted it to be in my top 5 in order for me to be the kind of business owner and person I wanted to be. So here's what you do. You fill in this blank, whatever the strength, if it's optimism for you or self-regulation or grit, whatever it is, you say to yourself, if I was 1% more brave, in my example, what would I do? What would a person who is, in my example, brave do? Say yours is humorous. You want to be funnier this year. If I was 1% more funny, what would I do? What would a person who is funny do in this situation? So again, a few years ago, I was going to this positive psychology conference. It was going to be 60 or so people that were kind of heavy hitters or further along in the positive psychology path than I was at the time. And I wanted to show up as a brave person. Now, normally I love speaking, I love teaching, I love sharing information, but usually when I'm in the audience like you are right now, I never say anything. If they said, does anybody have any questions? I would never raise my hand. If they said, does anybody want to volunteer? It would never be me. But this time I was like, I want to be brave. So I said before the conference, if I was 1% more brave, what would I do? Well, if I was 1% more brave, when they asked for volunteers, my hand would be the first one to go up. What would a brave person do? They would ask questions. So that's how I went into it. And sure enough, does anybody have any questions? my hand, first one to go up. And the cool thing that happened was at the end of that particular session, 3 women came up to me and said, I'm so glad you asked that question because I was wanted to know that and I was too afraid to ask. So I got a little positive feedback. Next, we were in groups of 3. We had to share a story, and then they were going to randomly select 2 people to share their story in front of the whole group of 60 people. Now, normally I would never want to be chosen because I want to be able to rehearse more, practice, know exactly what I was going to be saying. But I said, if I was 1% more brave, what would I do? I would want to be chosen. What would a person who is brave do? They would want to be selected, but it was totally random. They put 60 names in a hat and they were going to select 2. So I said a little prayer before, dear God, if you want my story to be selected and me to be chosen to share the story, please let it be me. They reach into the box, pull out a name, Pam Garamone. Now my heart's racing, my hands are sweating, my knees are shaking. I was scared out of my mind, but it ended up being the most incredible experience. I got to share my story in front of everybody, was in a U shape. And then they had somebody recording all the feedback. So the positives, the ways I could improve the story. It ended up being an unforgettable experience. So this is something that you can try. Folks, knowledge is not power, it's potential power. If I share these techniques with you and you never try them out, will you be any happier, less stressed, or more resilient? You can type in the chat there since I can't see you. The answer is no. You'll know the stuff. It's like we all know we should floss every day, but how many of us do? Knowledge is not power. I really invite you to try these out. So think of, let's just go back real quick to the list of maybe the 7 game changers. Maybe one of these. If I was 1% more grateful, what would I do? If I was 1% more curious, what would I do? What would a curious person do after hearing this talk? For example, if I was 1%, had 1% more self-control when I see a tray of chocolate chip cookies, maybe I only eat 1 instead of all of them. Just an example. Okay. If I would have 1% more hope, what would I do? If I was 1% more loving, what would I do? So I invite you to give this technique or strategy a try. Now, the next one I want to share with you, this is only for the brave. This is from Adam Grant in an interview with Tim Ferriss. It's called the Best Self Exercise. And basically what you do is reach, I think 15 to 20 is a lot. If you did just 3 to 5, you'd still feel incredible. Reach out to people you know well, colleagues, boss, family, friends, and ask them to tell a story about a time you were at your best. Then collect all of your stories. And Adam Grant said, this will be the most delightful week of emails you will ever get. This is how amazing you are. Again and again, your people, the folks around you telling you at your best. Then you can kind of look at, are there any themes? Who am I at my best? Is it when I'm speaking? Is it when I'm being funny? Is it when I'm being kind? And see if you can notice any of the strengths, your strengths in the stories that people tell. And what brings out your strengths? Again, if I was 1% more brave, I would ask 1 person to tell me a story about my best, 2 people, 3 people. So this is something, again, if this resonates with you, then you can give this one a try. You know what? Maybe let me see. Yeah, why don't we just try this right now? If somebody would like to type in the chat a time you were at your best. Maybe you can recognize this in your own self. What is a time you were at your best? Maybe it was, like for me, was the time I told that story in front of 60 people I didn't know. Maybe it was the time you fell in love. Maybe it was a time you went to Europe all by yourself or hiked a mountain by yourself. Does anybody want to share a time you were at your best where you were lit up and you felt really alive and energized and vibrant? Anyone? Or you can make a note of this and say, you know what, maybe I'll journal about this later, a time that I was at my best. Maybe you gave a speech. Maybe it was the time you interviewed and got this job that you have now. Oh, look at this. I didn't even see that, Maria, when I interviewed for the position I've been wanting. We're on the same wavelength when I gave a speech at my retirement. Beautiful. You know, there are a lot of good things in our life that we just forget about unless we intentionally look for them. Remember, positive psychology is overriding that negativity. Maybe the voice in your head right away when I said that was, I can't think of anything, nothing. I've never been at my best. You know, it takes an intentional effort to override that inherent negativity and look for the good things that are happening all the time, every day, in everybody's day in our life. Okay, let's see. The next thing. Now, what did I already? Yeah, the next thing I want to share with you is called strength spotting. Now, I'm not really sure when, maybe Andrea, you can tell me when the end time is, because I'm not 100% sure when we started. Oh, more coming in. When I spoke at a work meeting and gave positive feedback to an employee. Hey, that made them feel good. Hike to Emerald Lake in the Rocky Mountains. Awesome. Thank you. Whenever you need to. Okay. Thank you, Andrea. So the next thing is it's called strength spotting. So we just did a little activity where you can have other people notice your strengths and you can notice your strengths, a time when you were at your best. So when you spoke up at a work meeting, the strength I would see there maybe is bravery. Giving a speech of retirement, that also sounds like bravery. Hiking, that could be grit and persistence because that may have been a hard hike, right? So yeah, so strength spotting is now noticing strengths in other people. So when you gave positive feedback to an employee, that can be considered strength spotting. Remember, these are the 24 character strengths that in strength spotting, you would make an effort to find these strengths in other people and actually tell them when they were creative, when they were funny or fair, or when they showed leadership, or when they were forgiving. Okay, so here are some examples. You could spot strengths in yourself before tackling an important event. I am brave, I am funny, I am organized, whatever the strength is, gives you confidence to step into that event. At a family dinner, you could take turns strength spotting each other. At a team meeting, you could talk about what went well. What are some of the strengths we exhibited in this project or in during this week? You can spot strengths in team members about how they contributed to the success of the group. And you could send a strength spotting email to a friend or colleague. So I want to share what this kind of looks like. Here's an example, a work example of strength spotting. When you stood up to our boss and put a stake in the ground for our team, the whole conversation shifted. I appreciate the bravery it took and your professionalism in representing us so well. Whenever you're strength spotting, you want to be specific, actually name the strength in context. Here's a personal one. Dad, when you fixed our dripping faucet, I felt supported and well cared for. I think that's your love and kindness strengths coming through. Thank you. Again, naming the strength and the context in context and specific. Folks, the cool thing about strength spotting is it's almost like you have this superpower, especially with kids, but even with coworkers or friends or family. When you notice somebody's strength, it kind of puffs them up a little and they feel good about themselves. And then they want to do it more. So if you tell someone, I really appreciate your sense of humor in the staff meeting, you really lighten us up and it helps relieve our stress a little bit to laugh. Thank you for your sense of humor. Well, if you said that to me, now I puff up, oh, I'm funny, it makes me feel good. And now I want to be funny again. If you point out your strengths to your kids, again, think of it as a superpower. The more you point out people's strengths, the more it makes them feel good. And our brain likes to feel good. We want to repeat that strength or that behavior. Does that make sense? Just type yes in the chat if you follow me on that. Okay, so yeah, okay, a few yeses. So Oprah, what she has said, I've talked to nearly 30,000 people on her show, and all of the people she's interviewed had one thing in common. We want to be validated. We want to hear what we're good at, what our strengths are. So again, if you're a person who can be a strength spotter, people will like you more, you will feel better about yourself, and you will lift the self-esteem and the confidence of the people around you. You'll make them feel good. So here's a quick challenge. Think of 3 people you could appreciate before this day ends. We're only in the middle of the day, so you have a lot of time. Could be your partner, a kid, a coworker, and see if you can notice one of their strengths in context. So it's, again, picking their strength in action, being specific, and then express your appreciation. Thank you, right? That's the specific formula. Okay, unbelievably, we've already reached the end. So if you want to just type in the chat, what's something that you'll actually maybe try out? Will you try out strength spotting? Will you take the survey and see what your 24 character strengths are, your top 5, your signature strengths? Will you spot strengths in yourself? Will you try out, if I was 1% more, what would a person who is do, and live into those steps? So I'm seeing take the survey, awesome. Take the survey, do strength spotting, spot strengths, awesome. Yeah, again, remember, knowledge is not power, it's potential power. If you never try anything you just heard out, then will you be any happier? The answer is probably no. The idea, especially going into 2022, is to actually put into practice things and see if they actually work for you. And if they do, repeat them. If they don't, try something else. Now, if you'd like to get on my email list, I send out happiness tips every now and then. You can just pop your email in the chat and I'll select one email to receive a complimentary copy of my Be Happier journal, where you can start noticing all the good things that are happening in your life every day. So again, if you want to get on my email list, put your email in the chat and you'll receive some happiness tips every now and then, and possibly win a journal for 2022. Want to follow me on social media? This is me. So feel free to follow me. And I am happy to stick around. If folks have any questions, you can put any questions that you have in the chat and I'd be happy to answer those. And thank you so much for your time and for your participation and listening. Positive psychology is really 2 things. First, make yourself feel good. Then make the people around you feel good, and you will feel happier, less stressed, and more resilient. So again, if you have any questions, pop them in the chat. The link to the survey. Ooh, do I know how to do that? Let me see. www.viacharacter.org. Never done that before, but there it is. That's the link to the free survey. Takes less than 15 minutes. And they send you, I think within 24 hours, you get your list of character strengths. Thank you for that question. Any other questions or comments? If not, Happy New Year, you all. Y'all, happier New Year. Have fun, and please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or if I can be of service to you in any way. Thank you all.